Well, welcome everybody. Excited. This is the last session today, which is pretty fantastic. I hope you've had a really good time. Lots of great sessions all day. I am super excited to be hosting the last one though. So my name is Kevin Tunks. I'm a chief architect and national technical advisor here. What I'm really excited about is talking about the integration capabilities and integrating the enterprise and beyond. And I'm so excited to have my very good friends here from KPMG, Mark Calem and Debarshi Datta. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how that is happening across state and local government, how that happens in federal and really beyond, because these are moving into commercial as well. So let me first have you introduce yourself, Mark.
Thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon, and thank you folks for staying to the last session. My name is Mark Calem. I'm a managing director in KPMG's advisory practice. I lead innovation for our state and local government practice, and I've been really doing this for a long time in state and local. I'm actually federal space, as you can tell by the color of my hair. Debarshi?
Thanks, Mark. My name is Debarshi Datta. I am on the technical side of things in KPMG, has been working in the technology space, healthcare, life sciences, health and human services for well over 2 decades. Currently, I'm the chief architect and the product owner of the Chrisc connected platform, what we'll be discussing a little bit later in the session. Thanks to all of you for staying back so late. Hoping to have a very nice chat with you all.
Fantastic, guys. Well, diving right into it, integration is a really hot topic. It's a hot topic because we're really talking about applications. We're talking about business mission capabilities, and that's a really neat space to be at. So, Mark, can you tell me just a little bit, why is this important now? We've always integrated systems before, but why is it different now than it was before?
Thanks, Kevin. Good question. So, I think everybody in this room, who's ever done any kind of systems work, we've all done integration work. You've always had to integrate systems together. That's nothing new. I've been doing it since I was writing COBOL code back in the day. But it's different now, and the world's really different now. And that's why we came up with this term, the integration imperative, because now more than ever, I think it's important to think about how we integrate systems and how we think about that integration, because it's more important now to bring things together given how systems are being built, how they're being deployed, but also when we're trying to solve the business problems. I think, Kevin, that's key. Is we're here at a Red Hat conference, and you'll hear later that we power our whole platform by Red Hat technologies, but we look at things from a business perspective. It's always how we're going to drive outcomes. And the outcomes we're trying to drive, whether we're working with a Medicaid agency and trying to deliver healthcare, or delivering better services and getting someone benefits during COVID, or getting SNAP or pandemic SNAP benefits, you got to be able to move faster. And the old days of building these monolithic systems just took so long. And then you had to do these point-to-point integrations. We got to move faster now. We got to move a lot faster. We got to achieve these business outcomes a lot faster, because our citizens are expecting that, your suppliers are expecting that, everybody's expecting something faster. And the way we built systems before. And so at KPMG, we came up with this term, the integration imperative, to really describe the real importance for how to think about integration in a different manner.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think you touched on that concept of speed, right? So much of this is line of business oriented. So much of this is the speed with which we're using things on our own phones, or we're experiencing the rest of the world. Government really can't stay behind and do things in sort of the organizational structures that they had before, where data ended up in lots of different silos. So, so pulling all this information together, being able to take advantage of what was there before, but also build things that are new. In the integration imperative, can you kind of describe a few of the topics up there and kind of dive into those?
Yeah, and so there's really, if you can see on the slide, there's really 6 key bullets, and I'll touch on a few of them. One of the things I think that would resonate with everybody here is you have to support the way systems are built today. The idea of even being on-prem and being in the cloud and talking to each other, that's actually not even reality. Everything we do typically now in our new clients, we're talking to at least 4 clouds. You're starting to buy SaaS-based systems. I'm going to buy ServiceNow. I'm going to buy Salesforce. I'm going to put my data in the Box Cloud for enterprise content management. I'm going to aggregate my logs and send them to New Relic or do things like that. You're moving data everywhere. You're also trying to build, and what we're seeing a lot in state and local government is instead of these monolithic builds, they're trying to build modular systems. Well, how are they all going to talk to each other? So building loosely coupled systems, for example, Kevin, building microservice-based architectures, you got to think about how modern systems are built. They're no longer monolithic, and in fact, even the federal government is requiring states in some areas to stop building these monolithic systems, and they're putting edicts down saying, you got to build modular systems, and they got to be plug and play. So if you're going to do that, you got to think differently. I mean, I think another one there is, improving customer experience. We all expect to whether you're even, you're in a government setting or talking Facebook, but you expect your data, you want to interact with the government faster. Well, if you're going to innovate processes, I don't care how much data is in different back-end systems, you got to present something to the citizen or the beneficiary in a streamlined manner. That means you need to be able to take data, aggregate it, present it to somebody so they can improve their customer experience, regardless of what the back end is. Without an integration platform to do things real time, fast, it's hard. I also think I see a lot of waste in state government. People, the same agencies, same departments are building the same same services over and over again. I need document management, I need forms, notices, I need business process management, business rules. Being able to build a shared service once and deploy it for an agency, it could be a federal agency, a state agency, a department. You got to build things once and reuse over and over again. And so you're going to hear a little bit later, our platform is not just integration, but it's also shared services. But it's also a data platform, because data is the key asset. And being able to build 360-degree view of a person's data, it could be a citizen, it could be a customer, it could be anything, is critical now. You got to start looking at data longitudinally for a person and understanding how your interactions with that person is changing over time, okay? Data is everywhere, so you got to be able to process that data, make it meaningful to you. And so these are some of the things as to why it's a different way of thinking. You got to think about integration differently. And that imperative to us is so important in how we're trying to go to market with that.
Well, and I love a couple of the things that you pulled in there, because you talked about not only being able to connect to all these legacy shared systems, because they're spread out everywhere, right? Like I've got a little bit of SaaS stuff. I've got some whole bunch of old systems on-prem that I've got to connect to. I've got things that I want to build that are new experiences, but all that has to have context of what's going on around it. Just recreating it from scratch doesn't make any sense, and it's redundant and it's wasteful, right? And so to get rid of that waste, you got to go a different direction. What I love even more is really thinking about that in customer or employee experience ways, right? It can't be a great experience if the data that's being presented isn't in context. And I think that's really where you guys are driving at with having those pieces together. Debarshi, let me pull you into this a little bit, because you're architecting these systems. These principles are really stable, great principles to build off of, but you got to think about architectures a little bit differently as you do that. So maybe expand on that a little bit. Why, how does this impact the way that you would architect something?
Sure. I'll touch on a couple of the aspects which Mark and you touched about. Start from the improving customer experience. So we talked about monolithic systems, but one advantage a monolithic system had was that every service was available locally. So if you wanted to build a comprehensive experience for a person requiring some services, you could have a single window where all the services are offered, and therefore you can build a portal where they could get all the services. Reality of today's system, these services will be offered by multiple solutions which are running in their own cloud, and for the modularity principle, we have to have them loosely coupled. So the question comes back that how do we then improve the customer experience? How could I, as a recipient of state's services, go to a single portal and get all the services that are available to me, even if they're served by different departments, as Kevin, you pointed out, or different groups? This is where the architecture becomes important. So going back to the part which Mark said, there has to be a system-level integration on the context and a sharing of relevant data across systems to achieve this. Keeping the business goal in mind, that the business goal is now focused towards the individual of giving some meaningful benefit to the end user, going by the improving of customer experience, keeping in mind the reality of the modern systems that they're distributed, will be running in their own cloud, and knowing that we have to leverage data as an asset, we have to have multiple layers of architecture put together so that we eliminate the issue of a point-to-point contact. We go to the modern system of integrating things through APIs, contract-first development. And we absolutely have to have batch transport of data. But then we need to have a real-time tracking of the business service and not only the technology service. The technology service can be tracked. All of you guys know out here how you will be using logs, you'll be using events to take care of one single service or an application logging to it. But in general, a single business service will span over multiple of these systems and therefore will span over multiple such technical services. The value is in the ability to track this business service from start to finish, even when it goes across different systems on which we do not have control of, which again then goes back, which we'll talk a little bit later, on our guiding principles of architecture. And this is the few paradigms, Kevin, which we instill in all the systems that we are building. In some cases, building what is called a system integration layer. In some cases, building a shared service, enterprise service management layer to allow multiple independent applications to be architected in such a way that they speak to each other and provide a unified value to the end user.
Can I interrupt? I mean, some of this sounds like motherhood and apple pie. You'd expect that. But as we go around the country, I still talk to CIOs all over the place, and the way they're architecting systems and buying them, even today, are not like that. Not what Debarshi explained. Everything's tightly coupled, and it gets to be so expensive to pull things out, and you're not really thinking of this layered. I need to engage my citizens or my customers one way. I got to access my data one way, but everything's kind of tightly coupled, and it starts to create a high total cost of ownership. And suddenly, how do you pull yourselves out of that? So architecture is paramount when you're thinking about the integration imperative.
Yeah, I can see where that is, because now suddenly you're kind of going from sort of building at these foundational pieces upwards and looking at the business through the technology lens up and going, I really look at my business processes. How do I gain efficiency there? How do I not recreate things as you go? And you architect a little differently with that, especially, and I think you guys have both said loosely coupled more than a few times here. And I think that loosely coupled but still tightly aligned pieces so that they're swappable and maintainable and upgraded. That's really neat stuff. I think I want to shoot forward and talk a little bit about the approach that you guys have put together, really the Chrisc connected platform, I believe is what you guys are calling it. Yeah. So maybe, Mark, can you tell us a little bit about the origin of the Chrisc connected platform and kind of a high level, what is it?
Right, so one of my roles at KPMG is I'm an innovation lead, but I also kind of came up with the concept and the visionary behind what we call the Chrisc connected platform. By the way, Chrisc stands for KPMG Resource Integration Suite. It's like our branding name for some of the products that we offer. But one of the things that I've seen around state government, I told you about my gray hair, I've been doing this for a long time, I've seen repeated patterns of everything is point to point. Everybody thinks I'll do my own stuff, I'll build my own integration points. Oh, I could put MuleSoft in 2 seconds, and I could build integrations by dragging and dropping. Yes, you could do that, but it won't perform, it's not gonna really do what you need to do, there'll be no auditability and things like that. And so what we did at KPMG is, in response to a lot of the customer needs, and in response to the fact that what we're seeing around the country is a lot of people want to move more towards a software as a service. They don't want to manage and build their own managed services organization. We built a product that is really an enterprise integration, shared services, and data platform that we deliver as a managed services. So it's a SaaS subscription that really runs on any cloud. It runs, Google, AWS, and Azure. And Debarshi will talk about this more, but it's all powered by Red Hat technologies, and that's what you see here. So it's all powered by Red Hat technologies. And part of that is, and Debarshi will talk about it, it's really important that we make things perform. One way to look at this platform is, if you think about Federal Express, I like to draw the analogy like we're the Federal Express of integration. Federal Express makes sure that packages get from one place to another place. when you ship something, they track it, you know where it is at every moment. You have envelopes, different sizes that say, I need this by 10 a.m., by 2 p.m., 2 days, whatever it is. We kind of do the same thing, but moving data around the enterprise. We could do things real time with APIs, API first. We could do things messaging and asynchronous messaging, synchronous messaging, batch, everything we do. We track everything that goes through our platform. It's all very auditable. We support HIPAA. It's NIST 853 compliant. We got to be HIPAA compliant. So we have this platform that's really used to move data around to meet those integration imperatives. It's secure, because we need to be secure, and that's something everybody expects. We store the payload to make sure that we have auditability with everything. We log application errors. Everything gets forwarded to, we aggregate all our logs. So we manage this as a managed service. And we're doing this in areas, right now we started with health and human services. So we have our first live customer has been integrating programs like SNAP, child support enforcement, and child care. We're doing this in the Medicaid space. We're going to transportation space. And we really see this as applicable, really, Kevin, to almost any industry, commercial, public sector, because everybody has to solve this integration imperative.
Well, Mark, what I like about that too is that you kind of started out, and I know we worked on this together when we did it originally, but we started out with health and human services, right? So places like Tennessee, places like North Carolina, places like New Mexico, and I think there's probably some others that are in flight right now. And so I think that really let us hone these things together to kind of learn lessons and apply them and get, iteratively build on those capabilities. As we go through that, though, I think it's interesting that you're seeing that while we've refined it with health and human services, it's really applicable beyond.
Right.
You mentioned transportation and some other areas. Expand on that just a little bit more.
So I think some of the areas we're looking at is, especially healthcare. And remember, this is not just moving data. Talking from one system. It's really tracking data, aggregating data, building longitudinal data stores, building operational data stores, building transactional data stores. The product comes with all this stuff. And so we're looking at financial services, looking at tracking customers, where you are, where you're spending, being able to do that on the financial services side. I would say every state agency, I don't know, I think there was someone here, I met someone at the booth from Department of Justice. I'm not sure if you're still here today, the FBI. There's needs everywhere on every federal agency. This is really, to be honest, Kevin, it's not a common problem. It's a problem that can be served, and our product has this set of features that are really generic, and then we have a set of features that are specific to each market. We have a Medicaid focus, human services focus, transportation focus. But the core part of our product, the capabilities powered by Red Hat, I believe are generic and can be used for almost any business problem.
Yeah, you solve those base cases, and then it's just a small alignment as you move into those vertical areas, right? So you can speak those conversations and have the tailored areas. So Debarshi, I see up on the screen, you've got 6 guiding principles up there. And let me talk about ask you to talk about those a little bit, because I think principles are such a stable way to think about how to manage complexity when you're building integrated systems. How do these principles guide what you're putting together?
So these principles are really important for us to develop, deploy the platform for any client side. These principles were actually derived. We just didn't sit down together and write down these principles. They were derived from the business problems we are trying to solve. And as you mentioned, when we started with health and human services, we looked into transportation. We were seeing, going back to even on the previous slide, that in order to make any system which is future ready and get the benefit of the latest technologies, means we have to be cloud native. Cloud native just doesn't mean that you are basically moving your workload to the cloud. That's a lift and shift. I have a server on-prem, I move it out here. When I talk of cloud native, we mean that we are using the cloud technologies for auto-scaling. We are using the cloud technologies to dynamically bring up and get down depending on your load. You're maximizing the return of your investment, the amount of money you're paying for just-in-time provisioning. We are using the technologies which are native to the cloud, like microservices, in the sense that we can deploy things through pipelines, through automation in those areas, and leverage the general, as Mark mentioned, any cloud's native abilities to have them distributed, have them scale, and have them move around and interact with each other. Then when we talk about container first, that's also a very important decision we took because we clearly understood when we were assessing the business problem that any department we go to, means in the government, be it a federal department, be it a state government, be it even a local government, they might already have had created some alliance with a cloud vendor provider. Containerizing our application allows us to move these workloads across or deploy them across any cloud seamlessly. That's where we got together with Red Hat. So while we use OpenShift, you see the logo out there, allows us to have a completely seamless portability of building once and deploying to any container you want. And we can extend it, means going to the edge when we are looking into IoT space out here, Kevin, as well as going on-prem, because it's a fact today that there will be systems in different departments, in different industries, where the industry is loath to move that work volume to the cloud. And we can use OpenShift on-prem and seamlessly talk to the rest of the systems out here, which essentially leads to our multi-cloud compliance and this multi-cloud applicability of the platform. So when you dig deeper into it, when scalable, resilient, and elastic, okay, everybody knows about that. Mark talked about standard compliance. When we are building something, we are keeping ourselves compliant to the industry standards, which makes it a very easy decision for any department to say, okay, you are NIST 853 compliant. Okay, you are healthcare, so you additionally need HIPAA compliance on top of it. So when we build our platform, these principles are built in. It's not that something we put on top on a particular installation for a particular client or a deployment, but they are coming inherent with the platform. That enhances the value of the platform and also increases the, I would say, the closeness that the client would feel into adopting our system because they know that's coming with some compliance, which is third-party verified. It's not that we are claiming it. It has to go through audits and everything. Now, going back to the rest of the stuff out here, why we kept this best of industry software and infrastructure? Means any client will be making an investment. Sticking to some best of industry software allows the client the ability to sort of future-proof their investment. We could have made all of these, followed all of these principles, and still created a completely homegrown system in which we own the code, we own everything, and okay, it works just as same. But as a client, you would have to then, quote unquote, get vendor locked with us. We don't want that to happen. We want the client to have the ability to move, to build on their own, to extend this platform on their own, and go forward with it on their own wishes. And that's where it becomes important that we have this best of industry software and infrastructure, which again flows into the extensible part of it, where we work together with the client as a collaboration, as a team, to extend the services. As Mark would talk to you about our Tennessee experience, where the client itself is taking whatever we have been built, and with little or no guidance from us, extending the services that has been deployed out there.
Yeah, they can keep building off of that, right? So and as things change, because none of these systems just you build it once and then you forget about it and it runs on the shelf forever and ever and ever. All these continue to evolve all the time, right? New programs come on and then you have to refactor things that are there, but it makes it really, really easy when you've got that openness to be able to extend out in it. You know, Debarshi, you touched on a lot of these topics already, sort of why Red Hat got chosen to solve some of those issues. And I suspect it's probably a little bit about managing some complexity, like instead of building your own and having a partner that can support you. But I'm curious, what are what were the big drivers for you guys?
So one of the core principles that we were with Strive when we built this one, that we want to run away from proprietary technology. Red Hat is the biggest, I would say, proprietary source of non-proprietary technology out here. So,
I accept that. All right.
But means using RHEL, using Linux, means using OpenShift and everything, allows us to have the industry best practices in open source forum, but at the same time have the stability and have the peace of mind that I will get strong support in a production deployment and not leave the client to the mercy of a community which may or may not provide that solution. So that drove our initial part with Red Hat, and plus, what we found in Red Hat, and Kevin, you know, means you have been participating with this with us for more than 2 years, we could get a single-stop shop to get all of our list of things satisfied. And that allowed us to provide economies of scale. It allowed us to pass on a lot of savings back to our customers in order to say that you will get this at a much lower price point than you would if you brought these things individually from different vendors. And for me, especially from the architecture and the technology side of things, the technical support that we got from the Red Hat team has been awesome. And so for me, those three are the big three markers.
And I'd also add, Kevin, that I mentioned this before, and I was kind of a little joking around, but the drag and drop, when you're really building mission critical complex systems, you can't drag and drop. And so we know Red Hat technology performs. We know 3-scale performs. We know AMQ performs. We know Decision Manager and all those tools. So we felt comfortable that we need to build something that's going to meet the needs of some very high, agencies that are processing significant data, like a Medicaid agency. You're processing claims, millions and millions of claims records. We had to be able to do that, and that was the other reason.
Yeah, I mean, when you're architecting systems that really go to the trust of government of citizens, right? So that trust concept's got to extend all the way down through your partnerships, your suppliers, the people that are part of that whole process. And I think that really shows why you guys have continued to grow in so many different areas and where you continue to really set market in a lot of those different spaces. And I think that's a really powerful message to bring to the table. Debarshi, there's a lot of logos up there. Let me zoom in on just a couple of them real quick. Let me zoom in on OpenShift. Because you guys run other stuff other than just some of our tools on there. You guys have some other third-party tools that you run in that architecture. And then maybe a little bit about 3-scale, just in the API management capabilities. Kind of tease out a little bit of those.
Going back to our principle of container first, we have native containers in each cloud. Why we choose OpenShift? The reason we choose OpenShift is because OpenShift has native deployment in all the 3 major commercial clouds today. So I could have built it in EKS, I can build it in Kubernetes, I can build it in native Azure Kubernetes containers, but that would mean every time I deploy to the different cloud, I will have to tweak my Ansible scripts, I have to tweak my deployment pipelines a little bit, but it'll still be work. So in essence, rather than building one platform code base or one platform main branch, I would have to have flavors of it in the different clouds. OpenShift clearly eliminated that. And so essentially using the OpenShift platform and using the CI/CD pipelines, the toolkits that come with it, Ansible Towers and all our deployment CI/CDs for services as well as applications, allowed us to streamline our development and go on this principle of build once, deploy anywhere in this, but then still sticking to the container first principle that we have. So for OpenShift, it was a pretty easy choice. Now, 3-scale, on the other hand, means you, frankly speaking, this is not a Salesforce conference, so I cannot talk about MuleSoft, but that's a direct competitor out here. But a couple of the things that 3-scale provides, the ability to separate out the API management from the microservices, which is not there in either Apogee or in MuleSoft for that matter, allowed us to build the backend services in a way where we want. We are building a Camel on Quarkus. But then, at the other hand, throttle the access to my system and stop it from, again, DDoS attacks or anything by just configuring in the 3-scale layer. Now, additional to that, 3-scale provides a very powerful tool called Developer Portal. And again, that allows us to have a seamless pipeline deployment of our API catalog at the same time when we deploy the code to our higher environments. And that keeps the contract, which is the OpenAPI specs for this, the Swagger specs for the APIs, totally in sync with our production system without having to spend any additional efforts. And for all the other features, like for managing the users, OAuth 2 sort of I would say, authentication and everything. It's at par with everything. I'm not saying means it's better or worse, but these are some of the salient features we see: the separation of the API management from the actual service, the ability to seamlessly publish the contract at the same time as we deploy the code, means allows us to operate in 3-scale much more efficiently.
Debarshi, that was fantastic. I think those are the kinds of user stories, the kinds of concepts about how we can build these things fast, we can have reusability, you can build trust with customers, and you can leave customers in a better place so that they can continue to extend over time. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. I also want to thank all of you for joining us today. It has been such a fantastic day and a fantastic session. So thank you all again.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.